Hey there, and welcome back to another episode of the Simple Pin podcast. As a reminder, we are now doing this on YouTube, but also in your podcast app. So if you want to see this interview, just simply hop over to YouTube and search Simple Pin Media. Today, we're going to be diving into my interview with Tony Hill, who's here with me, about the keyword tool that he created for Pinterest. So a little bit of backstory. As I have been working on Pinterest marketing, speaking for years, I actually have this one experience at Social Media Marketing World where I said there's not a keyword tool developed for Pinterest. And this guy in the audience was like, well, I'll create it. And I was like, okay, like I didn't know people can just like whip these things up. And I never heard from him again. And then I think a couple years later, I heard someone say, well, someone should create a keyword tool. And now there seems to be one out there that Tony has created. So I want to ask him all the questions in my true fact finderness about this keyword tool and how it can really help our businesses on Pinterest get better and more educated about keywords and their ranking, because keywords have long been a mystery on Pinterest. Where do they rank? How do they rank? We used to love having the repin count when they used to call them repins years ago on a pin because we could actually see what the number was. It was kind of like our indicator. And then they took that out completely, and we've essentially been flying blind a little bit since. So we're going to dive into that in just a hot second. But I want to say this first. If you are new to the Simple Pin podcast, or maybe you've been listening for years and you need a refresher, Simple Pin Media, first and foremost, we are a Pinterest marketing agency, and our number one goal is to serve clients by taking Pinterest off of their plates so that they can focus back on other things. Because we know that social media, SEO, all the things demand a lot of your time. So offloading Pinterest marketing to experts is a great way to stay ahead with your Pinterest marketing. So if you are interested in getting some help, especially in Q4, book a call with our team and figure out how we can serve you, whether it is full account management every single month, a deep clean, our accelerator package, whatever it is, we are ready for you. So go to simplepinmedia.com/services to book a discovery call with our team. And if you're interested in a consult, just a note, that is not a consult. You can book one with us. Simply scroll down in your app or on YouTube down below, and you can book that and grab your time here below. So, Tony, thank you for sitting through my ramp up to our podcast episode for 2 minutes. Welcome to the Simple Pin podcast.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me, Kate.
You bet. So I have a question for you before we dive into your story. If I were to say the words small business owner, creator, SaaS engineer, blogger, what label kind of resonates with you? How would you identify yourself in this online world?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's been a tough one to answer. If you were to ask my wife, like, what does your husband do? She probably wouldn't be able to give you a really simple, easy, clear answer. I think if I could package it up, it would just be a tech entrepreneur.
Okay. I love
Yep.
that. So tell me
I've done
how
a
you
little
got
bit of,
started in
yeah,
that.
I've done a little bit of everything over the years when it comes to being on the computer, being on the internet, getting my start when I was in middle school, high school, building websites, just gravitated towards being online and building things. I'm not a big consumer per se. Like I played video games when I was a kid, but not a ton. I just loved building things. And it's cool to watch. I've got an 11-year-old daughter and she loves to build things too. And it's been cool to watch her use AI tools to build stuff. Because obviously that's just where things are headed right now. And it's like a whole new world. So I just love to build things, create things. And it's been great to be able to have this outlet of doing that here online. And so building websites, getting my start almost 20 years ago now, building my first niche site and being able to make money off them through ads and built more and more and gotten a lot of traffic from Google. And then I have dabbled in SaaS before, built and I did that for a solid 10 years, but I exited out of that. It just wasn't a great fit. And so then I just, spent more of my time on running my own niche sites. And I still had the bug in me to do another SaaS. I learned a lot of hard lessons. from that first one. And I wanted to do another one and do it the right way. And so that's kind of been my big focus these days.
And I've heard that from other people who have started SaaS companies, that the first one they've gone through was really difficult. They had to figure out how their personality fit within it. And then a lot of them go on to do a second one, and they say that exact same thing. Like, I learned a lot of lessons. I know what I would do differently. And I would imagine too, with all the tech tools that we have, the evolution isn't just our personalities and how we approach it, but it's also the tools that we have. And there's things that make it better and quicker and faster. Whereas I'm imagining back in 2004, even when you built your first website, I mean, think of that now or then, and now we have like plug and play websites.
Yeah.
So it's bizarre that we go back to 2004. And I'm dying to know, like, in 2004, there was like Blogger, or what else was out there? I feel like
Blogger. I remember for a long time I was using like GeoCities and Homestead. That was like early 2000s, late 90s. Starting when I first started my own niche sites, they were all done by hand, HTML and PHP. Wow. And then like WordPress really started to gain a lot of traction. So eventually moved everything over to WordPress. Yeah, made things much easier. But like I said, now the other day I saw a YouTube video, and it was literally like 45 seconds. And all this guy did was put in a keyword. 45 seconds later, it had a full draft in WordPress of the blog post title, the entire blog post, a bunch of images, like everything filled out, just ready to hit publish. And he said the 45 seconds, like that was a little longer than what he had been used to. Is like normally around 30 seconds. I had my jaw dropped, like just like you just did, watching that. And it's a crazy world we're entering into with all this AI and whatnot.
Yeah. So let's take a little bit of a sidestep with that. So looking at watching him kind of create this in 45 seconds, and all the way back to 2004, creating a website that took you days, if not months. How do you see that? Do you see that as, this is really amazing, we're going into all these new iterations, or with a little bit of caution, like, I'm not sure how either the market's going to react or how this is going to play out with the human audience?
Yeah. The way I'm looking at it right now is that there will be a lot of niches that will be impacted by AI. And as far as creating content, it'll just become a commodity. Same thing. There's a lot of the concern and fear about, robots and AI taking over jobs. And I think in certain industries, like, it's going to be affected more than others. And I think the same will apply online, especially as it relates to content that's being surfaced like on Google, Pinterest, Facebook, etc. And so it's a matter of some people might have to pivot on the kind of content they're creating, because again, it's just becoming a commodity, and someone can create that content with the click of a button and really scale it out, and it's good enough for the consumers. And then, I think there will be some niches and areas where people can still create that human created content, maybe with some AI assistance, but there's gonna be more creativity to it that maybe AI hasn't at least gotten to yet, and is not good enough to get to yet. So I'm still hopeful that there's still an aspect of where we're still going to need humans to come in and really shape and guide the content, whether it's through video, text, images, and whatnot. But that's just probably not going to be true for every topic, for every niche.
And I kind of wonder if we'll get to that point where there's a label required, right? Like, this was written by a human, or this was written by AI, so that the user is informed enough to make that distinguisher of, okay, do I want to consume an AI content, or do I want to consume human content? I know there's like a whole issue with like regulation and all those kinds of things. Yeah. But I think as a consumer of all these things, I would find that actually super helpful to know, to be able to make an educated choice. I don't think we'll get there, but who knows?
I have the same viewpoint as you. Yeah.
Yeah, a whole separate thing. Okay, so I'm going to bring my sidebar back, because I can do that every once in a while. So you've got all these websites, and throughout, over the last 20 years, we're going to take that time frame from your 2004 to now. There's been so many iterations of tools that we can use to get people to our website. And I'm curious for you, obviously Pinterest started in 2010, so we can't go back to 2004, but when did Pinterest kind of enter in for you as a good viable option to get that traffic to your websites?
Yeah, so I kind of stumbled into it. I had one of my niche sites that happened to be Pinterest friendly, and I created the site to do well in Google. I just have always had a passion for reverse engineering things. Um, and then when it comes to Google, it's been really fun to be able to figure out, okay, how do I get a website to rank for certain keywords? And so, yeah, there was like one day I just noticed that Pinterest traffic started to ramp up and started to pay a little bit more attention to what kind of pins were doing really well. Back then, there were a lot of like really long tutorial pins, like step by step kind of stuff. And one of my niches, and I was like, all right, let's kind of double down on that. That did really well for a while, but now that's kind of gone out of vogue. So Pinterest traffic kind of died down for a bit, and then it was like around COVID, the summer before COVID. I don't know. My timeline,
Everybody's
COVID
timeline.
messed up my timeline. So
Yeah, it's like
it was around
2019 to now,
and
fluid
yeah,
years.
yeah, totally. But I was like, all right, Google traffic is not doing well. There's an algorithm update. I've gone through my fair share of algorithm updates, but it's like, okay, let me see what I can do with Pinterest. Like, see if I can reverse engineer some things and spend some time on that. And I found for like one of my niches that, okay, if I just double down on just the sheer amount of pins that I'm putting out there, like that just might be what it takes to do well. And so I did that, and lo and behold, that's what it is that really helped propel our traffic from Pinterest. And so ever since then, it's just been a matter of like continuing to reverse engineer things and try to figure out what's making it work, what doesn't. I've been kind of blinded to like there's a whole Pinterest community out there, like creators, bloggers that love to talk about Pinterest and pen designs and getting clicks and all that. And like it's just something I never really got into, I'd even paid attention to until recently when I've been more public about Pinterest and some of the strategies I implement that work really well for me and that can be helpful for other people. And then I've discovered like there's just all these pockets of Pinterest creator communities. So it's been fascinating. I've learned a lot from that. I've made good friends with Carly Campbell, and so she's kind of introduced me to some communities, and she's just knows her Pinterest history. She's paid more attention to Pinterest than I ever had because it just being kind of a community leader, she just gets exposed to so many different types of websites and topics and niches. And she gets a lot of all that visibility, which feeds to her patterns. I think she's kind of figured out patterns, and she just pays closer attention. Like I paid close enough attention to Pinterest to like get in and figure out, all right, how can we get these pins ranking, getting clicks? And then I moved on to other things, and I've got like a whole team of VAs who handle all my Pinterest stuff at this point.
Right. Well, and I think the thing that you called out, which I think is a good distinguisher, is you were head down figuring out how Pinterest was going to work for your different websites and what you could take the level of pinning to and pull back on, and images you could use and then pull back on. And I think the advantage to that is that you are definitely tunnel vision on your stats, like what is working for you. And I think sometimes the trap of a creator community where a lot of people are talking about Pinterest is it's easy to get bumped off into different ideas or tactics or things like that, because you hear all these things that are working for other people and you kind of keep chasing them. And I think the advantage in your story that I hear is, okay, you were head down, paid attention to all of these things, then kind of saw the wider community. And at the same time, you're also creating a tool that both serves you and what you know about Pinterest, but also learns more about what the greater community is looking for. So let's talk about that tool. It's called Pin Clicks. And I'd love to know, like, one, how you got the idea, and then kind of how the iterations of the tool have kind of come about to land on the keyword tool, which we're going to talk about in a minute?
Yeah. So I landed on this idea because someone, and I run a private forum, and someone in that forum posted a link to a Pinterest tool. They were like, does anybody use this? Like, I'm seeing a lot of success using it. And so I checked it out. I'm not going to name the name of the tool, but I checked it out. And honestly, it was such a challenge to use. Like, I had to download it to my computer. I'm like, oh gosh, I have to download like software. I should be able to run it in my browser. And then it was just, the interface was just confusing, hard to use, but like I figured it out, made it work, created SOPs, sent it to my BAs, like, all right, let's use this tool for our keyword research. And so we went with that, but I was like, something was just itching at me. Like, it really is this like the best that's out there? And so I did more searching, and there were a few other tools for keyword research that I checked out, and some Chrome plugins or extensions, but still like nothing was, I don't know, kind of the stickler for like making things easy to use. And there's nothing that was just super easy to use. And it was kind of, I don't know, kind of felt like kind of limiting in what it offered. So I was like, all right, can I just build like a better version? Because one, I could really use it. It'd make it easier for my team to use it. And then two, maybe other people would like to use it too. It'd be a lot easier than some of the alternatives that are out there. And so, yeah, it was like February of this year, 2024. I like kind of pitched the idea to a couple friends, get their feedback. They're like, yeah, it sounds awesome. Like, go for it. And, going back to what I mentioned earlier about like, I kind of had the itch to get back into SaaS, and I was excited about doing this because that was an opportunity, and I can do things a little differently than I did the last time. And one of the things is this initial criteria of like, there's this phrase to eat your own dog food. And that is to create a product or service that you use yourself, because if you're your own user, you're going to resonate with your product and your customers in such a different way and better way, deeper way. And so I looked at it as I could really use this tool. And if I end up building it and it just serves me and my team, great. It's still a win, even if no one else likes it. So I was pretty motivated to do that. And I was able to, be fortunate enough to find a developer that I could partner with. And so he's been great to have on board and really work on making this a really great tool to use.
Well, and I love that you built it for yourself first, because I agree with you. I think that's even when we use Pinterest or we use Instagram or whatever tool, we have to already be a user of it ourselves. And I think when I have people come to us and they say, I don't know how to use Pinterest. It doesn't make sense to me. Is it like Instagram? Is it like Google? What is it? I find that we have the hardest time selling them into not just our services, but Pinterest itself. Like, this is why you need this tool for your business. And if you don't get it or you don't understand it, you're never gonna understand why. And you're never gonna be able to use it in a way that's effective for your business, because you don't even get how it works. So creating a tool that you're like, well, I want this to work for me. Who cares if we sell it to a bunch of people? I at least want to know that it's working for me. So let's take the first thing. So tell me about the tool. Like, I only know a little bit about it. Obviously, I haven't used it. I just know a little bit from Carly and I having conversations. And so tell me first and foremost, if I'm a new user and I'm thinking, what is PinClicks? Why would I add it to my suite of business tools that I use? What would you tell me?
Yeah. I like to describe it as like the best Pinterest research tool for creators.
Okay.
Going back to reverse engineering things, and I like trying to figure out, okay, why are pins ranking high? Why are they showing up in the home feed? And it just requires research and taking the time to sit down and do that. So this tool helps with part of that process of understanding pins and how they're ranking for different keywords. So like one of the first things that we built within PinClicks is the top pins tool. And that's where you can just put in any keyword, and we're going to check Pinterest to see those top 25 ranking pins for that keyword. And then we're going to show you the stats for those. And I was not aware of being able to like see lots of stats about pins. Before I checked out this tool earlier, I knew at one point Pinterest showed like the number of repins and stuff, but then they hid it, and I didn't know that you could still see it kind of behind the scenes. There's a way to access that information until I tried out this tool earlier this year, and then figured out how pin clicks can do that too. So you can look at all these top ranking pins for a keyword, and you can see the number of saves is like the biggest metric I'm looking at, because that is one of the most, if not the most important signal or metric that Pinterest in their algorithm is looking at for a pin, and whether or not it's going to show it for a search or in the home feed or as a related pin, because it just communicates that it's a great pin that people want to save and reference in the future. And so it's important because it's an important signal to Pinterest. It's an important signal to me as I'm, doing research, factoring in, okay, I see a list of pins here that are ranking for, kitchen ideas. Which one has the most saves? And like, what can I pay attention to about that particular pin that's got like twice as many saves as any other pin? What's special about it? What's in the image, and like analyzing the image. What's in the pin title? What's in the pin description? What does it link to? If it links to anything at all, what kind of blog post is it?
And can
how
you
is that
see
blog
when
post?
it was pinned too?
Yeah, so you can see the number of saves. You can see when it was pinned, which gets a little tricky because then there are people who will like take, if you have images on your site, and then they will save those, and then they can show up and it's not like your original pin. So that gets a little tricky with the created date. So
Right.
yeah, we're working on being able to find better ways to show you, okay, was this pin, is it one of yours that you put out there, or was it by like a reader or Pinterest user? So we're working on that. But yeah, I'll show you the number of saves, the date that it was pinned, and we show you, of course, it's ranking in Pinterest. So Pinterest does rank these pins. So you see, like on desktop, there's like, I don't know, 5 across, and then just keeps going down. And then like on mobile, it probably shows like 2 or so pins. But each one it's like position number 1, 2, 3, 4, and Pinterest labels them. And so that's just something to pay attention to. And we show the rankings there as well. We don't show some of the other metrics that we could. We might do that in the future, like the number of comments, the number of times people like hearted it or gave it a thumbs up. I don't know. Right now, it just didn't seem as important as like the big signal as saves. Like that's the biggest one. And so that's what we're focusing on right now.
And
so that's like
Pinterest has said too, is that saves is their number one thing that they're looking at.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what we're mainly focused on. So that really helps inform me on, okay, if I want to cover this topic on Pinterest, here are the top ranking pins, at least logged out. We're not searching Pinterest logged in. That's a whole other conversation. We can have that. But it does search it logged out, and it's like, all right, what kind of pen designs should we focus on? What kind of text we should include? That kind of stuff. One thing that makes pin clicks different than any other Pinterest tool I've seen, because there's probably a handful of tools like this. And one of the things that separates us, and this is thanks to Carly, and that is we show the annotated interests that Pinterest has created for every pin. So if you don't know what that is, basically every time you create a pin on Pinterest, it is going to analyze that pin, and it's going to try to understand it based upon what's in the actual image, to like the pin title, description, to what is it linking to, and what kind of text is on the blog post that it's linking to. And it's going to basically label this pin with a handful of keywords to describe it. And these keywords are what Pinterest calls interests. And I like to look at them as like an entity or just a thing that Pinterest knows about. And so these are important to understand, because if we can make sure that our pins are matching relevant interests, then it's going to give Pinterest and their algorithm more confidence about what our pin is about. The more confidence that Pinterest has in what your pin is about, the more likely it's going to show it like in the search results or in the home feed, at least give it a chance to do well. So our tool will show you what these official labels of interest are for every pin. And that from there, you can use those, put in your pin description, your pin title, again, to help boost that confidence that Pinterest has. So that's like the main aspect of the top pins tool. And so that's been kind of a game changer for me and my team to be able to do that. Because one of the things that we launched recently, because I just really wanted it, was like, okay, you look at the top, say, 5 ranking pins for home decor, and you've got dozens and dozens of these annotated interests, these keywords, and you're like, okay, well, I can't just completely stuff my pins with all these keywords. Which ones are the most important? And so we show you the ones that are used the most, especially paying attention to among like the top, say, 3 to 5 pins. What are those keywords that they're using the most? And so those are the ones that I have my team pay attention to the most.
And have you noticed in using those, are you able to track your pins and see them climb in the rankings?
Yeah, good question. We have not, I need to go back and look at the date we started using that and putting those in. We haven't marked it, but I'm sure I can find an email conversation because I am curious. It's relatively new in the last couple of months that we've started implementing all this, because it was one of those things I never paid close attention to. I was aware of that you can bind these keywords if you can look at a pin logged out of Pinterest, and they'll show you what these keywords are. Kind of have to scroll to get them all. And I wasn't really paying a whole lot of attention to them, and still doing really well with Pinterest. And I did wonder why. And it came from, there's a huge overlap with one of the niches that I'm in. That's like my biggest site. There's a huge overlap with the keywords that we're using to target Google and the keywords showing up for Pinterest. And so honestly, it was kind of like dumb luck that we were using a lot of the right keywords because we were optimizing for Google, and it happened to also be optimizing for Pinterest in many ways. So now we are more focused on, all right, for sure we need to use these particular keywords that are these interests that I'm talking about, rather than just kind of based upon what we're doing for Google, because we actually have stopped really optimizing for Google, like a lot of other creators have it. Yeah, since Google has decided to not really like a lot of these niche blogs and sites. So focus more on that. But we're a couple months into it. The algorithm has been crazy throughout the summer, the last several months. It's been up and down for so many people. And like this particular account that I'm thinking of, it's been kind of just flatline for the last couple of months, which I'm really grateful for. Actually, it's kind of it should be in a down season through the end of the year, but it's kind of been flatlined for the most part. And so I'm grateful for that, because I just have seen so many people lose a lot of their traffic from these algorithm updates. So I still something that I see that is not going away by optimizing for these interests. And one of the things that makes PinClicks unique versus any other tool out there is that we have I don't want to say the same exact database of all of these interests that Pinterest has, but it's probably pretty darn close. Like there was a day months ago that I kind of stumbled into this big list of all of these official interests. And I knew that Pinterest had all of these in some sort of database because they've talked about it on their engineering blog. And it's basically their whole vocabulary of all of these really popular search phrases and keywords, and that they've decided that's like, let's have a human review these and create a taxonomy. Like basically, what's the hierarchy? Like where does, kitchen design, where does that fit like in a hierarchy? And that would probably be like, home decor, and above home decor would be like home or something. And so just kind of categorizing all these interests. And so I kind of stumbled upon this huge list, just like 11 million of them. It took a while to like figure out how to extract them all and get them all. And I quickly downloaded them in case I just realized, like, I don't know, maybe this was a mistake on their end, but I imported all those into PinClicks. So now we have like this whole searchable database of all of these official interests within the Pinterest database. And so now we can, again, go back to how can we make sure that our pins are really relevant and increase that confidence score that Pinterest has for the pin and what it thinks it's about. because it's tagging all these pins with these interests, and it's also tagging users with all these interests, and it's just trying to find a match.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was something interesting that I learned from the engineering blog. Is that's ultimately what makes Pinterest tick. Like if you think about the word interest and Pinterest, kind of put those together there, and it's all about these interests and just finding matches of like what is someone interested in and what are they interested in like recently, and how can we show them new pins that they are likely to engage with. And so it's kind of a competitive advantage being able to know like what are all these official interests that Pinterest has in behind the scenes that they're using, that they're labeling pins and labeling users with, and being able to make sure we're including those in our pins.
Yeah.
Is a long-term advantage, I would say.
Absolutely. This brings up a question for me because we've seen this in the past with another tool that we won't name, but it was shut down in the past for accessing the API at Pinterest. And Pinterest was like, you can't have access to this. So there are questions in general with people with new tools that come about to say, are you not necessarily approved by Pinterest, or is it okay to use the API? Is this a tool that you can say, we're on the up and up, totally good, no risk of being like shut down?
Yeah. So we're on the up and up. And the reason why is because we have not created an official Pinterest API account.
Mm-hmm.
We are accessing publicly available data on the web. If you can find it in the browser, then it's kind of a free game. I looked into the law behind that, at least here in the States, and it's kind of like Google, like they're scraping the entire web, and they're indexing it. And they're
putting it into Gemini.
Right, putting the Gemini. That's right.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's kind of the same idea.
Okay.
And I mean, sites can block Google from scraping them, but then they're just like Bing and other search engines and all these like ChatGPT and OpenAI. Like it's just, if it's out there on the web and it's publicly available and it's not behind like an API where you need like credentials, then it's kind of free game. And so that's why we did not create an API account, which does create some limitations, to be honest with you. But there's a trade-off that we can't show you a lot of cross-reference of data of like, all right, how is your personal account doing with, because you can see like the number of outbound clicks, for example, on all your pins and analytics. And we could tap into that using the API and cross-reference that with saves and show you like really some interesting ways of, I don't know, like how you're targeting keywords and how your outbound clicks. But if as soon as we were to implement that, Pinterest would shut us down, because what we're doing with scraping is against their terms of service only if you agree to their terms of service as an API like the developer. And so because we did not agree to it, because we didn't sign up to it, we're not beholden to it. So it's on the up and up in that regard. And one thing I don't like about their API is that when you get the data from Pinterest, you can't store it. You have to get it in real time. And so it just makes it a challenge to like track things over time. There's that limitation in Pinterest analytics. Like you can only see, like the past like 6 months or so, maybe 12 months of data, and that's it. And then it's gone forever.
And do you think as a developer, seeing all of this, now it would make sense to you why it's been hard to create a keyword tool that does that ranking? Because I would say a lot of people, when you say keyword tool, people instantly go to something that you use for Google. They have either SEMrush or Ahrefs, and they're like, okay, it's going to tell me ranking. It's going to tell me how I need to target for this keyword. And there's just not an equivalent to that for Pinterest. And I think a lot of people think either there should be or someone should be able to develop it. But I'm curious, based on what you've said, it makes it hard to create that because the API limits that data so much. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. There is a popular Pinterest tool that's out there that I talked about where you have to download it and you can connect your Pinterest account through that tool, which is crazy because then that makes that tool violating their API terms of service. So it's amazing that tool has been around as long as it has, and it hasn't gotten its API like shut down. So that's on them. And just something to be considerate of if you use that tool. That's why I've never logged into it, because I knew like, oh, this is breaking the API terms of service as soon as I log into my own Pinterest account within that tool, because this tool is breaking the terms of service.
Got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So
thank you.
I've had this background of SEO for Google, and I've always had these tools available to me like SEMrush or Ahrefs, where I can get keyword ideas, but I can also track my rankings in Google and see like if I'm ranking or other sites in ranking and how that's changing and how I can better optimize for that to increase my rankings and traffic. And yeah, I've been wanting that for Pinterest. And now that I'm like really focused on Pinterest and come from this background of like reverse engineering things, analyzing data, I just didn't have that available. And so that's kind of the future direction I see PinClicks going. Like we just recently launched a rank tracker, so you can put in any keyword and you can see all the pins that are ranking, and you can put in your own blog domain and you can see where you're ranking, and we track it. Like every week we're going to ping Pinterest for that keyword, and we're going to see what all the rankings are, and if you went up and down, we'll show you. But then over time, I want to build a database where, I can, for some users, and you can do this with like SEMrush or Ahrefs, you can put in any domain name and you can see all the keywords it's ranking for and how those ranking changes have changed over time. Some people might hate that idea.
No, it sounds super cool to me. More data you have, the better.
I know, right? But then people will get more insight into, well, what a particular Pinterest account and how they're doing and what they're ranking for and what keywords they're targeting. And so then that might show you opportunities for you to target some keywords maybe you never even thought about, but maybe someone who has a similar blog as you are targeting them. So that's just been a strategy I've always used for Google and SEO, and I'd love to be able to use that for Pinterest too. So that's something that we're working on.
That's awesome. Okay, I'm going to ask you for practical. If you are a listener and you have a blog and you are creating new content, what would the workflow be for this person after they've created their blog post, their content? How does your tool enter into their workflow? They're already pinning to Pinterest. They're probably using the search bar on Pinterest or Trends or something like that. Mm-hmm. How does this fit into what they're already doing?
Yeah. So this tool is so new that I've been continuing to like work on my own workflows for how to use this. I always recommend starting with Pinterest Trends. It's an amazing tool. I wish Google would offer something like it, but it might just be too revealing for Google to do. I think we should count our blessings every day that Pinterest has this Pinterest Trends tool. They could easily take it away and we're like totally in the dark on what people are searching for. So I always recommend starting there because those are just going to be the most popular searches for topics for certain niches. Some niches you can be in, and you can get almost all of your keywords that you want to target from the Pinterest tool. Others, not so much. You might plug in a keyword like, if you're in the golfing niche, you type in golf into Pinterest Trends and you're not going to get a lot of results. And so then what do you do? Like, because you know that there are golfers on Pinterest. So how do you target them if you don't have a tool that's giving you keywords or even official interests that Pinterest uses for golf? And so that's where PinClicks can really help in those cases. Using Pinterest using PinClicks as like your first point of keyword research, figure out, okay, I want to create some blog posts around golf. I really want to serve the Pinterest audience with it. So go to PinClicks. We've got a keyword tool and we've got the interest tool. So you can search the huge database of interests. You can start there. You can also start with the keyword tool, which basically what we're doing is you punch in a keyword and we're going to Pinterest, and we are, when you search Pinterest in the search box, you'll start to see a drop down of suggested searches. So we're grabbing all of those suggested searches, but we're also then appending letters before and after that search. So if you type in, and going back to like, kitchen design ideas, then we're going to do like kitchen design ideas and like the letter A at the end, and the letter B at the end, because that's going to change the suggested keywords that show up at the bottom of that search box. And so we're performing that search for you manually. To do all that A to Z before and after the keyword, that would take you forever, right? So we're doing it for you automatically, like within seconds. You have that entire list. And then one of the things that I think makes us unique and I really like about it is that we will show you, we give each of those keywords that we bring in from Pinterest like a popularity score. It doesn't mean that this is a popular search per se, like relative to all the others or even relative to other possible searches that people could do on Pinterest. It just means that, hey, when we pinged Pinterest for this keyword of like blue bedroom ideas, this was the top like number one suggestion that it provided below that search. And Pinterest is going to order those suggested searches based on like what's popular. I mean, that's what I would do. Like what's gonna be popular, what's gonna be most engaging, what makes sense to the user to search for next or to refine that search. And so we're just indicating like, hey, these are the ones that basically were at the top ranking of all those suggested searches. Those would be the ones that I would pay attention to. So that's kind of the process. Like if you're just getting into Pinterest and you don't have a lot of options for using the Pinterest trends tool for keywords and figuring out like what to create content about. But if you've got an existing blog and you get lots of keyword ideas from Pinterest trends, pin clicks can help with a couple of things. One, it can help you go even further long tail. Maybe you kind of exhausted all of your Pinterest trends. If you've been around for years and years, you might have hit all the big topics so far. If you want to like narrow it down and go more long tail, that's where our keyword research tool will help. The Interest Explorer tool can help you find all of these kind of smaller long tail keywords that probably don't get a lot of searches. But what I'm finding it's really helpful for is showing up in the home feed, because especially when you're targeting these interests. So because you kind of have to play both games of Pinterest. You got to show up in the search box, like in the search results, and then also you want to show up in the home feed for people.
Yes. Yeah. And to clarify really quick, especially for those who are new listening, your pins show up in the main home feed of the user because Pinterest is identified, like Tony, you said earlier, they'll assign interest to users. They've said, we're interested in this. They don't have to be following you. They don't even have to have pinned something of yours even in the past, because Pinterest's whole goal is to create that home feed where it keeps people scrolling and they can put ads in here, right? And then we have the search feed. So it's optimizing for both of those and knowing that you can hit them in these different places and with different, one could be a video, one could be a standard image. Like there's a lot of different opportunities to get in front of the audience on Pinterest, leveraging both.
Yeah, well said. So if you say you have created a blog post and it's based upon a keyword you found in Pinterest trends, then the way I'm using pin clicks, and I recommend others, is, but I'm using it as part of my blog post creation process. So I've got my main keyword I get from Pinterest trends, but what are the secondary keywords I can target within this blog post? So going back to just home decor, it's a really easy one to pick examples from. So sorry, I keep going back to home decor. So you do like a blog post on, blue bedroom ideas. And now, what are some related searches that people are doing for blue bedroom ideas? And that could be like, a royal blue bedroom idea or blue bedroom ideas for toddlers. Like there's just all sorts of variations of this that would be important to include in your blog post if you've got that really general type of blog post. And then you can create, all these different types within the blog post and then create pins targeting all those variations and different types of blue bedroom ideas. So it really informs like all the H2s, like the subheadings in the blog post with my style of content that I focus a lot on, which is a listicle content. When it comes to informational content where maybe it's not so structured and you don't have a lot of subtopics to it, then keyword research tool can give you either good ideas to points to hit on within the blog post, and that you can create, like pins with text overlay to target those particular points in the blog post, or just give you ideas for future blog posts. So you can make a whole series out of it, like on, how to deal with, like if you have a toddler and they're like in this phase of like they have really bad tantrums, there's probably all sorts of tips and strategies to help with that. And you can create one giant blog post and create, a bunch of pins targeting that one blog post. My recommendation would be to split that up into multiple blog posts and do your keyword research to make sure like you're hitting all the different ways that a toddler could be throwing a tantrum, like, and how to help with that. So like you're out in public, right? In the grocery store or something. How do you, what are some good tips for that particular scenario. That would make for a great individual blog post and a great set of pins that are targeting that.
Okay. We've got a good workflow. And I'm sure for some people who are listening, your minds are a little bit blown of like how to make this work. And I didn't say this in the beginning, but I want to add this disclaimer here. Sometimes I will do sponsored podcasts. This is not a sponsored podcast. This is me. This is Kate being curious about this tool because I think you brought this up earlier of like where the online world is right now. And especially as we see these Google changes and we see the future of Pinterest and we see Pinterest getting better at distinguishing itself from social media, at being an outlier, at being a type of like search engine. And one of the things that they do say is we want to be like America's shopping mall, right? Like we want to be the great originator of both ideas and products. So that leads me to my last question for you. I probably won't be the last, but I'll say it's the last like 3-ish. Do you see this as a tool that could be used for e-commerce sellers, both physical and digital products? Can they leverage this in not only their product listing keywords, but their content keywords?
Yeah. So disclaimer, I'm not an e-com. So I would use this as a tool to validate, to figure out, okay, what are the interests that are related to my products? Because the products are already there. They exist. Maybe some are in a position where they can create products based upon their keyword research with Pinterest. For some things, especially digital products, that would be a little easier.
Yeah.
But if not, if the products are already created, how can you better optimize your pins to reach those users who are interested in those products? And that's where I would personally go to the Interest Explorer tool and start typing in the product category, the product name, and see what official interests are coming up and to make sure my pins are targeting those. When it comes to rankings, it's if you're in the product, if you're in e-com and you're selling products, it's a great time to be on Pinterest. It's frustrating for a lot of content creators who are just creating like blog posts because I'm just seeing so many more products dominate the search results. And so that's kind of should change the strategy for a lot of just content creators, but it's a great opportunity for those who are selling products and creating those product pins.
Yeah, it is a change, right? And I was talking with somebody today about just the landscape of 2024 into 25 when it comes to the online world. And I would say even a couple of years ago, it felt so much easier to do a lot of these things. And now it feels so much harder. But the time of innovation is now, right? The time to get curious is now, to say like, okay, if we can't do this, what can we do? If we can't find the keywords in their ranking on Pinterest, what can we do? And I applaud you for your curiosity and your ingenuity in that area, because I think that that's kind of what matched up for me when I was thinking about interviewing you for this podcast, was like, how do we start to ask questions of the people who are seeing Pinterest with a certain perspective, and they're saying, I want to solve this problem for myself. Maybe this will solve it for a broader audience. And so, great job doing that, because I can tell you right now, like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not a tech-minded build it. I'm an agency owner and an educator. I'll just be really good at that, but not the other.
There you go. Yeah.
So where can people go to connect with your tool? And does it cost money? If it does cost money, is there a free trial? What are we looking at here?
Yeah. So pinclicks.com does cost money. There is a free 5-day free trial, and it's unlimited. So you can do whatever you want there for 5 full days. And then it's up to you. Decide on if you want to upgrade and pay for it. I recognize that there are other tools that can do some of the things that Pinclicks does, and they have like a one-time payment. And Pinclicks is not, it's a subscription model. So you pay every month, or you can pay annually and get a really sweet deal. And so that's one of the another big reason why I was so excited to launch the rank tracking tool, in that it's something that is working for you and providing value for you every single week by keeping up with your rankings and letting you know about changes happening there. We're also going to be tracking the changes that will happen to the search suggestions for any keyword. You can track a keyword and all those search suggestions. Those will change from time to time on Pinterest. And if there's a new one that's entered into that box or that dropdown, I would want to know about that for ones that I'm tracking so that I can make sure like I'm creating pins to target it. Same thing with those little filter bubbles. At the
Mhm.
once you do a search, and I think they call them guided search. Yep.
Mhm.
So we're going to be tracking the changes to those, and you can get notified when those change to make sure like, hey, are we creating pins to target those? So there'll just be that's going to be a lot of like ongoing value that
Mm.
the tool will provide, and so I feel good about charging monthly or annually because of that ongoing value there. So yeah, you can check out pinclicks.com there, and then I've got a newsletter. I write mainly about Pinterest these days. I started off writing about Google and SEO, and then things just kind of tanked there. And so I focus more on Pinterest, and I'm just sharing what I'm learning about Pinterest and how I'm changing my strategies. So you can just go to tonyhill.co to sign up for my free newsletter there.
Perfect. So we will include all those links for those who are listening in the podcast app. Just scroll down below in your podcast app. You'll find those if you're on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe so you can get more interviews like this as well, and sometimes solo episodes with just me. But we will add all those links down below in the description for you. So, Tony, thanks so much for your willingness to come on today and kind of talk about where you're at with building this tool, your own Pinterest strategy, and kind of where you are leaning into future growth with Pinterest. So, thanks again for your time.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me, Kate.